Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. So today it is Friday, December 28th, and tomorrow we are having our final family Christmas at my house. I'm hosting with my mom and that side of the family. So my mom, my stepdad, my grandparents on my mom's side, my sister and her daughter. And so I thought I would kind of do a holiday, I guess it's Christmas, even though this is going to be posting like way after Christmas, but holiday like shop and cook and whatever with me. So right now I'm at Fairway, which if you're not in the Midwest is like a smaller grocery chain. They're kind of more known for their meat. It's not my favorite place to shop, but I have just enough time. Like I have 30 minutes before I have to go get Connor from swim. And so this is the closest grocery store to my house. And so this is where I'm going to go. So I am going to pick up just what I need for all of the food that I'm going to make tomorrow and the drinks that I'll need. And then once I get home, I will show you what I plan to make and what I got at the store. All right, so this is my Carrie L meal planner, and sometimes I still get questions on this, but this is the mini meal planner, and I'm not sure if this design is still available, but I always have a link in my description box to her site, and then I have a code too. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's there also that you can use to get a percentage off if you want to order one. But in the back of this meal planner, there's a gathering section. So basically it just splits out all of your like appetizers, side dishes, and this is what I use when I plan like bigger meals. So like I used it for Thanksgiving this year and I've used it for Christmas Day. So for appetizers, I have a 7-layer salad that I'm gonna make, and I'll link all these recipes down below. I already have them printed off, but this is from wishesanddishes.com. I've made this once before and it's really good. It's not like the classic 8-layer or 7-layer salad. It's got ham and salami in it, and I'm not sure what makes it so good. I think it's the dressing part. So I'm going to make that. And then I'm just going to have like some veggies and cheese and pickles and olives. And then I got some rolls to make also. And then my mom is going to bring a broccoli cheesy rice casserole, which is really good, and I actually have that recipe that she typed out for me, so I'll type that out in the description box below if you're interested in that. And then I'm going to make some stuffing or dressing, whatever you call it. This is the recipe I used. It's the Ina Garten sausage and herb stuffing. This is on the Food Network website, but I'll link it down below. I've made it many times before. My sister's going to bring corn casserole, so like the corn bake with the Jiffy muffin mix. And then I'm also going to make scalloped potatoes. I've never made this recipe before. This is from GimmeSomeOven.com, and I'll link it down below. But this is her recipe for scalloped potatoes, and I thought I would try that. I'm also going to just make some green beans because I know that the kids like those as a side. I'm going to cook a turkey and make gravy with the broth, and I showed that actually in my Christmas cooking video, so I'll link that video down below. But basically I cook my turkey overnight from frozen, and it turns out really good every time. And then for dessert, my mom is going to make a chocolate pie and bring that. I'm going to make a coconut cream pie. I don't know that I've ever made a coconut cream pie before, but it sounds good, and I'm looking forward to trying this recipe. This recipe is from addapinch.com, and I've made banana cream pie a lot of times before, but I don't think I've made coconut cream. And then I might make some chocolate chip cookies. I'm not sure, just because I have some shortening to use up from Christmas baking, and this recipe was included with the shortening. Normally I make my chocolate chip cookies with butter, but I thought I would try this recipe out. And then I just have drinks. And I actually already have plates left over from our regular Christmas, so I won't need to get that. So I spent about $100 at Fairway, which is pretty good. They didn't have at least one of the things that I needed, and that's always my frustration about shopping there, is that there's just not a lot of choice, and so sometimes you don't get exactly what you're looking for. So for the 8-layer salad, I got some iceberg lettuce, I got some cheese for both the salad and the scalloped potatoes, so I got 2 sharp cheddar and 1 Monterey Jack. I got a green apple for the sausage stuffing. The recipe calls for 2, but these were pretty large, so I just decided to get 1. I got a bag of carrots for the bottom of the turkey, so carrots and celery will go in there. I got a cucumber to cut up for like a veggie tray. I grabbed an extra container of sour cream, 2 8-ounce containers of heavy whipping cream for the top of the pie. I got some more eggs. This isn't for tomorrow, but I thought the kids could try some chocolate almond milk. They've never had it before, so we'll see if they like it. And then I also got some, just a half gallon of 2% milk and some half and half. I need this for the scalloped potatoes. I got some more mayonnaise because I was out of that in the pantry. And then the salad recipe calls for these tiny little shells, so I got a box of those. For the pie, I got some sweetened flaked coconut and some coconut milk. I also got some sweet pickles for the relish tray. I got some grape tomatoes for that too, and then flat leaf. They don't have flat leaf parsley at Fairway, and this actually looks pretty wilty. It's curly leaf parsley, but I'll have to make do with that. That goes in both the salad and the stuffing. And then I also got a bunch of green onions. For the stuffing, I just grabbed a loaf of French bread. I would have preferred it not to be sliced, but this was the only kind they had, so that will be like dried out in the oven and mixed with the stuffing. And then in the stuffing also goes a pound of breakfast sausage, so I just got 1 pound of that. I also got these vanilla shortbread cookies. They were on sale, I'm assuming, because it's after Christmas, but they have not obviously expired yet, so I thought I could set those out too. And then I just grabbed some English muffins to have on hand for breakfast. I got some Capri Sun for the kids and some regular Pepsi. We usually don't buy regular pop at all. We always buy diet, but sometimes people come over and they want regular soda, so I grabbed some of that. I got some frozen deep dish pie crusts for the pie, some peas for the salad, some green beans, and some dinner rolls. These are the Rhodes frozen dinner rolls, so you have to thaw these out and let them rise, so I usually do that the morning of. And then this is something new, obviously not for tomorrow, but Adam loves Flamin' Hot Cheetos, and I saw now that they have Flamin' Hot pretzels, so that's interesting. And then I also got a disposable pan for the turkey. The turkey that I'm going to make is rather large, and so I don't know that it will fit in my regular roasting pan, so I wanted to grab one of these instead so it would be large enough. So those were all of the groceries that I got for tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm going to get started by making the coconut cream pie the night before our meal. One tip that I have when you're cooking large meals is to work backwards. So the things that need to sit in the fridge the longest, or the things that take the longest to make, always start with those. And since I wanted to make sure that the cream pie had a time to set in the refrigerator, it's definitely something I wanted to start working on the night before. So this recipe calls for 5 egg yolks. I'm just separating those into a large measuring cup, and then I'm going to add my coconut milk and half and half and whisk that up. So once your egg yolks and your milks are mixed together, you will add it into a heavy bottom saucepan along with sugar and cornstarch. So this is what is going to make the base for your pie, or the custard mixture. I have not made coconut cream pie before, but I've made banana cream pie and lemon meringue pie and different things like that. So don't be afraid to try a custard based pie. It can be a little bit intimidating, I think, but as long as you cook your custard over really low heat, make sure that you're whisking it often so that the custard doesn't stick or burn at the bottom of the pan. You'll definitely be fine. So once the mixture comes to a simmer, it will start to thicken rapidly. You'll be able to tell as you're stirring it that it's thickening up. And then after that, you can go ahead and add your pat of butter, your shredded coconut, and a little bit of vanilla, and just mix that up and take it off the heat while you prepare your pie crust. So in my opinion, it's totally fine if you're making a homemade pie to use a pre-baked or a pre-made pie shell. I get these in the freezer section. They are just deep dish pie shells. You can bake them according to the package directions and cool them, and then all you have to do is add your custard. Super easy, and they turn out really delicious. No one is trying to be a hero with this big meal. So after that, you can put some saran wrap on the top. Make sure that you push the saran wrap down onto the pie so that it doesn't form a film, and then you can put that in the refrigerator until it is ready to serve. So on top of the pie is going to go some toasted coconut. So I'm just putting some of that on a baking tray lined with foil, and I will toast that in the oven until it is nice and golden. Just make sure that you check on it so it doesn't burn. And then after that's done, you can whip up your cream. I'm just using 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, a little bit of vanilla, and about 2 heaping tablespoons of powdered sugar. I'm using my electric hand mixer with the whisk attachment to whip this up. If you've never whipped homemade cream before, it's really delicious. It tastes so much better than Cool Whip, and it's really easy. The only thing you want to watch out for is just make sure that you don't whip it too far. If you keep whipping it past the point where it's stiff, it'll actually turn into butter, obviously, because all butter is just cream and salt. So just make sure that you're careful of that. But I'm going to get this finished whisking up, and then I will top my pie, and that will be ready. Okay, so here is the completed pie. I just covered this lightly with saran wrap and popped it in the refrigerator until it was time for dessert. This turned out so good. I would totally recommend this recipe. It was really, really delicious. So the next thing that I'm going to get started on again the night before is a batch of chocolate chip cookies. Now typically I normally make my chocolate chip cookies with real butter, but I had some Crisco left over from a different recipe that I had used, and I don't normally use a lot of Crisco, and so I thought it would just be interesting to try the recipe on the package. I'll link it down below if you're interested in trying it out. I think these turned out really good, but if I were to do it again, I would probably use the butter flavored Crisco. The texture of the cookies was really good. I just think that kind of buttery flavor was missing, but all in all, they turned out good. Everyone ate them up. There were no complaints. So to start this recipe out, I'm just using my KitchenAid mixer, and I am whipping up the Crisco along with some brown sugar, some milk, and some vanilla extract, and then I will add my egg and the dry ingredients. So basically, again, just your standard chocolate chip cookie recipe. I think the key with making chocolate chip cookies at home is you have to take them out of the oven just before they are done. If you leave them in the oven until they are all the way done, you will overbake them and they'll end up being hard and crispy and not nice and chewy. So now that the dough is done, I'm just using a parchment liner to line my baking sheet, and I'm using a little mini cookie scoop to get these out onto the tray. This is the easiest way, I think, and it's way faster than using 2 spoons. You just want to make sure that you place them on the baking sheet far enough apart because they will spread out a little bit while they're in the oven. But after that, I will pop them in the oven and wait for them to get done baking. So these are going to go into a 375 degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes. I had to cook them, I think, for about 11 minutes. I do have a convection oven, but when I'm baking cookies, I turn the convection function off, otherwise they get burnt. So here is what they should look like when you take them out. Let them cool on the baking sheet for a few minutes before you remove them to a wire rack, and then once they're cool, you can store them in an airtight container. they'll keep on the counter for several days, and they will not last that long. We ate these within the next day when we had our holiday get together. So definitely the night before, I'm also going to get started on my roast turkey. So I just have my turkey in my roasting pan here in the bottom. I added some carrots, some chopped up onion, some celery, and a little bit of garlic. This turkey is frozen, and this is the method I normally use for cooking turkey. I cook it from frozen the night before, so it's in the oven from 10 p.m. the night before until around 6 or 7 in the morning. Now, I just want to say that this is depending on the size of your turkey. This was a rather large turkey. I don't remember how much it weighed. I ended up having to put it back in the oven at 400 degrees for about 2 hours for it to finish. So I just want to stress that please use a meat thermometer. Stick it in the part of the turkey that has dark meat, like the leg, and just go by the recommendations on the meat thermometer for the doneness of the turkey as far as poultry goes. So I drizzled half a cup of melted butter over the top of the turkey, added salt, pepper, some thyme, and I added 1 cup of water in the bottom. That is what I will use to make the gravy. And so then I just want to make sure that I cover it up tightly with aluminum foil before I pop it in the oven. So this turkey will go into the oven, like I said, at 400 degrees for 1 hour, and then you'll turn the oven down to 275 and it will cook the rest of the night. Now, when I did this on Thanksgiving, I had a smaller turkey and it cooked through just fine in about 8 hours. If I probably would have left this in the oven for maybe 10 or 11 hours, it probably would have been cooked through, but it wasn't. So anyway, it was no big deal. Like I said, I took it out in the morning. Found that it was not up to temperature, and so I uncovered it, put it back in the oven, as you can see here, at 400 degrees for about 2 hours. I used a meat thermometer that was oven safe. I stuck it in the leg just to make sure that it had come to temperature, and after it was done, I went ahead and let it rest before I carved it up. So I removed the turkey to a large baking tray, and I'm just placing a strainer over a large measuring cup and straining out the broth into that. I'll go ahead and discard the veggies, but that's what I'll use later to make my turkey gravy, as you will see later in the video. So I have an electric carving knife, and this is what I have been using lately to carve up meats like ham and turkey. I actually just got this a few months ago. Adam wanted one because he smokes brisket sometimes, and it's just so much easier to slice. And it's really a great kitchen tool. It's super inexpensive. I think it was less than $20. I'll link the one that I have in the description box below. I just ordered it on Amazon. So I'm just going to go ahead and slice up the turkey. I like to slice the breast off, or try to slice it off in one big chunk, and then slice it up into individual slices. And actually what I did with this turkey carcass the next day was made turkey stock with it. So don't throw your turkey carcass away. That makes a really good stock that you can use later in recipes. Once my turkey was all carved up, I just put it in a 9x13 dish. I put a little bit of broth over it to make sure that it stayed moist, and then I just covered it with foil and kept it on the back of the stove since the oven was on to keep it warm. Okay, so I'm really excited to share this recipe for 8-layer salad with you. I found this recipe on Pinterest several months ago, and I made it once for a get-together, and it went over really well. So I was excited to share it with you guys. But basically, it is a twist on the classic 7-layer salad, but it's a little bit different. So I started out by boiling 2 cups of the mini shell pasta and draining those under cold water until they were nice and cool. Just cook them to the package directions. And then I also hard boiled 4 eggs and put them in ice water so that they were easier to peel. The recipe calls for shredded iceberg lettuce. Sometimes I like to buy the shredded iceberg, but this particular day I just decided to buy a head of it. And shred it up myself. So I just have one head. I'm going to chop that up into smaller chunks. You want to make sure that you don't leave the chunks too large or the salad will be hard to spoon out. You're going to end up putting this in a trifle dish, which ends up looking really pretty. It's kind of impressive to your company. So while I was washing that lettuce, I'm going to put the cooled pasta into a big bowl, season it with some olive oil so that the pasta doesn't stick together, and a little bit of kosher salt just to give it some flavor. So this salad recipe calls for 4 hard-boiled eggs sliced up, and my preferred method of making hard-boiled eggs is in the Instant Pot. But since I was cooking so much today, I didn't want to drag it out and take up counter space, so I just decided to boil these on the stovetop. I actually did one extra so that Connor could have one for breakfast on this morning. And while I was slicing these, I just realized that I don't have an egg slicer, which would have made this a lot easier. So I think I'm going to be ordering one of those on Amazon, either that or just picking one up at Walmart. I'm sure they're super inexpensive. So I sliced up my eggs, and I'm just spinning my salad dry. I know I say this in every video, but I love my OXO salad spinner, and I always link it in the description box below if you guys are interested. I use it for so much more than salad. I wash all my produce in it, really. So I have a trifle dish here. I just got this like so many years ago from Walmart. It's a really cheap one. So in the bottom you layer the lettuce and then the pasta on top of that, and then the hard-boiled eggs sliced up on top of that. Make sure that you season your eggs with salt and pepper to add a little bit of extra flavor to that layer. The recipe also calls for frozen peas, so what I like to do is just put the amount I need into a strainer, and then I will rinse those under cold water in the sink until they are thawed out. The recipe also calls for some sliced up ham and salami to go in the salad as well, and this was great because I had both of these things right in the fridge. I didn't have to purchase either one. I usually keep salami on hand because my daughter likes to have salami sandwiches once in a while for lunch. And for the ham, I'm using the rosemary ham from Trader Joe's. If you haven't tried this yet, it's totally delicious. I would really recommend it. So I didn't really measure this. I can't remember how much the recipe called for, but I just chopped up a little bit of each, enough to cover that layer. So the next layer that you'll put on will be the meat right on top of the eggs. So the next step in this salad is to make the dressing. It's super simple. You'll just need some mayonnaise, some sour cream, some chopped green onions, and then some Dijon mustard. I like to add a little bit of milk, or half and half, just to thin the dressing out a little bit, and also salt and pepper to taste, but that is it. It is super easy. You just basically whisk it up and put it on top of the meat mixture. So I actually misspoke there. You're going to add your thawed peas to the top of your meat mixture and then add the dressing on top, which makes sense. So just pour that over the top and smooth it out with a spoon so that it is even. And then your next layer will be some cheese and some parsley. I also added some fresh dill to the top of it because I had some in the refrigerator, but that is not in the original recipe. The recipe calls for shredded Monterey Jack cheese, so that is what I used, but I've also used shredded cheddar before with this salad and it works out fine, so you could use either. So just sprinkle that on top, and then I'll go ahead and add my fresh herbs and the salad will be complete. All right, so here is the completed salad in the trifle dish. I always just think this looks super pretty and it really impresses your company. I would totally recommend making it if you're having a gathering. Hi, Murphy. He's always cooking with me in the kitchen. So the next thing that I'm going to work on is my dinner rolls. This is my preferred brand of yeast rolls whenever I have a family dinner. I like to use the Rhodes frozen rolls. So they're super easy. They come frozen in little balls. You can get them at most any grocery store in the freezer section with the rest of the bread dough. I'm using a baking sheet that's a little bit larger than a 9x13, and I'm lining that with parchment paper. I sprayed it with a little bit of canola oil spray just to make sure that the rolls didn't stick. And you just want to arrange them a little bit far apart because they will rise, obviously, and so you want to give them room to do that. And then cover them with a sprayed piece of plastic wrap, and those will sit in a warm place for about 3 to 5 hours until they rise and double in volume. The next recipe that I'm going to show you guys is the sausage and herb stuffing recipe that I use. This is the homemade stuffing recipe that I've been using for years, and it's my favorite when I'm not making stovetop stuffing. So this is an Ina Garten recipe. I got it on the Food Network website. I'll link it in the comments below. I got this large loaf of French bread from Fairway, and it was already sliced, so some of the work was done for me, but basically you just want to cube your bread into small pieces and lay it out on a baking sheet. That way your bread can dry in the oven. This recipe calls for drying your bread in the oven. I know that some people like cube theirs up and dry it out the night before. I've never really done that. I've always just done it in the oven. So that's my preferred method, but you could do it either way. So once the bread is all cubed up, you will stick that in a 300-degree oven for 7 minutes. I actually had to put like maybe 10 more minutes on the timer after that because I had so much bread on the tray. I just kept stirring it around and putting it back in until all of the bread was dried. So the next thing that I'm going to work on is the veggies for the stuffing. So for this, you'll need a stick of butter. I just went ahead and placed that in my skillet. Next, I'm going to chop up a few stalks of celery and add that into the skillet. I will also chop up 1 onion. You can actually see that this one was rotten. That hardly ever happens to me, but I went ahead and got a fresh one out of the pantry. I like to make sure that my veggies are chopped up as fine as I can get them, just because I'm not really a big fan of big chunks of veggies in my stuffing or in anything really. So I always want to make sure that I chop them up as fine as possible and saute them until they are soft. So to my celery and onion, I'm also going to add some chopped up parsley. Like I said before, I prefer flat leaf parsley, but all the grocery store had was the curly, so that's what I had to use, and it turned out fine. Next, I'm going to core a large Granny Smith apple and chop that up fine and add it to the mixture as well. Before you put it on the stove to saute, just season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. And I just saute this over medium heat for probably about 15 minutes. I think the recipe said to do 10, but like I said, I like to make sure that mine is all the way cooked through before I combine it with the bread. So if you do it on medium heat, you will not have a problem with it burning. The bread cubes were dry now, and so I'm just transferring those into the largest dish that I have, which is this large roasting pan. You want to make sure that you get something plenty large enough to stir everything up in. Obviously, the bread is going to shrink down a little bit when you add the veggies and the stock and everything, but you'll need something plenty large to stir that up. So I actually thought that I had some homemade chicken stock left in the freezer, but I remembered that I used all of that when me and my sister made tamales the weekend before, and so no big deal. I had some chicken bouillon cubes in the pantry that I was able to use, and it worked out just fine. So to my bread, I'm adding the sauteed veggie mixture, and then I'm going to get started cooking up my sausage. So the recipe calls for 3/4 of a pound of ground breakfast sausage. I'm not going to save 1/4 of a pound of it in the refrigerator, so I'm just going to go ahead and cook up the whole pound. I'm using my mix and chop from Pampered Chef. These are also available on Amazon. If you're interested, I'll link them down below, but I always use this when I'm sauteing ground meat like burger or ground chicken or sausage. Okay, so once the sausage is cooked through, you can go ahead and add it to your bread and your veggies. I wouldn't recommend draining this just because the extra liquid isn't going to hurt anything. If it was particularly greasy, I probably would, but this sausage wasn't. So once that is mixed in, you can add your broth. I actually added 2 cups. The recipe only called for 1 cup, but I thought it needed 2. So I went ahead and added that. The recipe also calls for dried cranberries, which you could add if you wanted to. I don't really prefer them in this. I just like to leave them out. So I'm going to spray a 9x13 pan with some cooking spray just so nothing sticks, and then add the stuffing mixture in there and pack it down, and then that will be ready to bake when it is time to eat. So the last thing that I need to get started assembling is my scalloped potatoes. This is a new recipe that I'm using. It is from givemesomeoven.com. I will link it down below. It's been such a long time since I've made homemade scalloped potatoes. I can't even remember the last time that I made them, but I thought this would be a good change from mashed potatoes since we had those for Thanksgiving. So I'm just starting out with some butter in a heavy bottomed pot. This is actually a Lodge Dutch oven that Adam got me for Christmas, and I really love it so far. I'll link it down below. I'm going to saute 1 small onion thinly sliced in there. I prefer to saute the onion until it is really, really soft. I don't want any bits of crunchy onion in my scalloped potatoes. So once that is softened, I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple squeezes of garlic paste, or you could use chopped garlic or garlic cloves chopped up if you wanted to. Next, I will add some flour. This is what is going to thicken your sauce. Anytime you're making a roux like this, just cook the flour for a few minutes to get that raw taste out of it. The next step is to add some chicken broth. You can see that that thickens up pretty rapidly, and then add your milk or half and half, whichever you decide to use. Also, I seasoned it with a little bit of salt, pepper, and some dried thyme, and then I just let that simmer until it thickened. It doesn't have to get super thick because the potatoes will soak up some of the sauce while it's cooking. And then once that's done, you can just remove it from the heat and let it sit until you're ready to assemble your scalloped potatoes. So for this, I'm using about 4 pounds of russet potatoes. The recipe actually called for Yukon Gold potatoes, but this is what I had on hand, so this is what I'm using. I prefer to peel mine, so I'm going to do that, and then I will slice them on a mandolin slicer. I have a mandolin slicer that I believe I got from Aldi several years ago. It's nothing fancy. I'm sure you can find them on Amazon if you're looking for one, but it definitely makes quick work out of something like this. And the other nice thing is that it allows you to slice the potatoes really thinly so that they cook evenly. So I'm just going to get finished peeling these, and then I will use my mandolin to slice up the potatoes. Just make sure that you're really careful. These are super sharp, and I have cut myself on mine before, so make sure that you're using the finger guard that comes with it once you get down to the end of the potato. So one thing I will say about slicing the potatoes up is you want to do this as soon as you're ready to assemble the casserole. Otherwise your potatoes will start to turn brown if they're left open to room air. I guess alternatively you could put them in a bowl of cold water and hold them for a little bit if you needed to. But the next step was to grate my cheese. I'm using just a fresh block of sharp cheddar cheese. You don't want to use pre-grated cheese for this. And actually if I had it to do over, I probably would have used a better quality cheddar. I would have liked to get like a Tillamook white sharp cheddar or something like that, which I'll do in the future if I make this again. So I buttered my casserole dish with some soft butter, put in a layer of the sliced potatoes, about half of the sauce mixture, and then I will go ahead and layer on my cheddar cheese along with some shredded Parmesan cheese, and then you just complete the layers. Also, if I had this to do over, I probably would have salted the potatoes. I just wasn't sure with the sauce and all of the cheese in there. I obviously didn't want to make it too salty, but now that I've made this once, I know that I would definitely salt the potatoes before I added that sauce over the top. So once this is all assembled, you can cover it with aluminum foil, and then you'll bake it in the oven covered for 30 minutes and then take the foil off and bake it the rest of the way so the top gets browned. But yeah, I would definitely use this recipe again. I did have to add a little bit more cheese to the top, and I'm using some of that leftover Monterey Jack. Again, this probably isn't the best choice because it's not really a strong cheese. I mean, it tastes good. It's just like in a dish like this, I feel like you need like a really nice sharp cheddar. So anyway, I'm just going to get this covered up and in the oven to bake for dinner. Here's a look at my rolls. Those have been rising for about 4 hours. They are nice and puffed up. Those will go in the oven at the last minute so that they are hot for us to eat. And there's my stuffing ready to go in the oven too. So the last part of my meal that I'm going to cook is obviously the potatoes and the stuffing. So the potatoes have been in there for half an hour. I'm just going to remove the foil so that those brown on the top and finish cooking through. And then I will add my sausage and herb stuffing to the oven and let that bake as well. So once the rolls are baked, I like to just brush them with a little bit of melted butter. This is probably optional, but I like to do this anyway just because I feel like it gives the rolls a better flavor, and then people don't have to spend time buttering their rolls while they're grabbing their plate. Okay, so last but not least is the turkey gravy. I went ahead and washed my Dutch oven out, and to the bottom I am adding some butter and some flour, some salt and some pepper, and I will whisk that together, again cooking the flour with the roux so that the raw taste comes out of the flour. Next I will be adding my turkey stock. So again, this was the stock that was in the bottom of the pan that I roasted the turkey in. I did have a little bit of fat that floated to the top, and so I'm just going to strain that out with a spoon as best I can and cook that with the flour. Whisk it up a little bit before I add the rest of the broth. And then basically it's super easy. Once you add your stock in, you can just go ahead and whisk it, cook it until it is thickened, and season it to taste. If it needs salt or pepper or any herbs, you can add those at the end. So here is my gravy all thickened up. I just wanted to show it to you guys after it was complete. So now it is time to set everything out on the island, and I will show you what all we are having for dinner tonight.
Okay, so all of our food is ready. So we got turkey. I made a roasted turkey. We got our veggies and ranch dip, crackers, cheese, sweet pickles, black olives. You like black olives? I love black olives. And then we got this 8-layer salad, which is delicious. And then I made gravy to go on the turkey and the stuffing, sausage stuffing with apples and onions and scalloped potatoes. And Kristen made corn casserole and rolls and broccoli cheese casserole that my mom made. So now we're gonna eat. Yeah. Okay, so the coconut cream pie must be good because there's only 2 slices left. You tried the coconut pie? You said it wasn't your favorite, but you thought it was good.
It was pretty good.
My mom brought some chocolate pie, and you guys made these candies.
This is like Reese's peanut butter cups. So it's Ritz crackers, and then there's peanut butter on the inside, and then we dip some of it in chocolate. There's these marshmallows.
Chocolate dip marshmallows.
Like we dipped them in chocolate, and then we dipped them in candy.
And then these are, what, a pretzel?
Pretzel. And you put rolls on top, and then you melted them in the microwave, and you put a pecan on top.
Yum.
I don't really like them with pecans.
And then I made these last night, chocolate chip cookies,
Fudge from my grandma. Cookies.
Shortbread cookies,
Sponge candy and peanut butter balls.
sponge candy, and peanut butter balls, yep. There's Grandma and Gramps. They're still eating. What?
Anybody else coming?
Nope. You want to open presents?
Yeah, yes, please.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard much.
We'll open it up and find out for sure. Whoa!
Oh, my gosh.
It's my first time getting a unicorn.
That is so cool.
She rips the tag up.
You're welcome, buddy.
Is that what you wanted? Oh, he's got wings. Or no, it's a tail.
Okay, so here are just a few shots from our day. There's Connor helping me with the veggie platter and one of our finished plates. My niece Adeline got a new bike from my mom and stepdad, which she was super excited about. My sister got a vintage Full House board game from 1993, which was super funny. Here's a picture of my grandpa with our dog Murphy and a selfie with me and my grandma. So thanks so much for spending our Christmas holiday with us. I hope that you got some inspiration for your future holiday meals. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in my next video. Bye.